we're constantly running vacancies in Road and Bridge. We've got 9 vacancies on the books right now, but yet we're asking for 2 entry-level positions. So,
You have 9 vacancies now?
yes, sir. As of this morning, I counted up. Yeah, we have a hard time hiring some folks.
So if we give you 2 more positions, it makes it easier to fill 11 than it does.
Well, we're asking for entry-level positions. We think we can fill those easier than we can equipment operators or truck drivers who are off heading to the oil field and other places. The big ones, though, that we want to talk about is, first of all, the material budget. We kind of got into a perfect storm this year in that the weather has cooperated with us, and we have been able to do more rehab work when we have the last couple of years where the rains have hit us and slowed us down. Plus, we do try to do 70 miles of seal coat every year. And so what's happened in years past, we've been able to, where we get shortage in some of these, move some money around, shuffle money around between the shop. That's where the big money is, shop and the materials budget, where we didn't have really any problems at the end of the year. But to give you an idea, our material budget, 75% of the year is over with, and we've already spent 92% of the money that's in it, and we're still blowing and going out there because the weather's cooperated. So we're looking at that, not to mention the fact that over the years the cost of oil goes up, the cost of base material goes up, the cost of rocks go up. So what we're seeing is, if the money that we think we need in there is about $500,000 more than what that budget is. Currently, this year's budget's $2,234,000 and some change. And to go along with that, our shop operation, we have a pretty big equipment shop that keeps all our road and bridge equipment running. They're down to the point now we have put them on a diet. We've told them how many dollars they get per month, and current budget, if we don't do something this year, we're going to have to park some equipment because it's broken down. But at any rate, we project what we think they need is about an increase of $125,000 on top of what's the current budget? Shop budget. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Commissioner. I'm not working off that sheet. I don't have it.
That's the first one. It's this one there.
The 2 that highlighted in yellow.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yes.
So that's for maintenance or for what?
The shop budget?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's maintenance and repair for the road and bridge equipment.
Was that people, or it's
No,
spare
that's-
parts and all that stuff?
Parts, if we have to, a lot of our equipment we have to send to the dealers because they've got all the technology to take care of it. So it's those costs. The in-house labor is already built up into, it's already built into the budget.
Okay.
So those are our 2 items, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, well, I got some.
Go ahead, please.
You said you need 500,000, but then 125,000, so it's 600,000. But you got here 705,000 that you're asking for here in this road and bridge. And one, Glenn, you and I talked also about the bridge on County Road 1875, and not on here. And you agreed it needed to do an assessment on it to because it floods, the
Well,
one that,
Yes, sir, we know it floods.
Yeah.
Structurally, it's sound.
are we sure? I mean, it hadn't been done assessment. When was the last time we did an assessment on it?
TxDOT does it every 2 years, and they're
Really?
due to do one right now. Yes, sir.
Well, I had talked to you last time, they hadn't done one on that one, they didn't do one.
Well, the last one that was done was in 2015. This year, we're in their cycle again to survey all the bridges.
But it might be sound, but that bridge, when it floods, it's supposed to be an escape route for it, but it really not, it floods,
Well-
so people can't get out.
Yes, sir, I hear folks say that's an escape route, but really, if you think about it, Fiesta Ranch, it's easier for them to go out either to US 77 or 665, and there's not a whole lot on the east side of that bridge, so
So you say we're going to do an assessment this year on that, you said?
TxDOT's supposed to. This is their window that they do every 2 years.
So that bridge belongs to them, not to us?
No, sir, it's our bridge. The State Highway Department is under mandate by law that they have to go out and inspect all the city and county road bridges every 2 years.
Can we put that somewhere in the list so we can make sure it gets done, I guess?
Well, it's on their list to inspect. There's no question about that. Now, if you want to replace it and raise it, that would be
I mean,
county money.
I need an assessment for that before we do that, right?
Well, no, sir. If the court chooses to get that bridge up out of the water, of floodwaters, it wouldn't require anybody's assessment.
Well, I guess we require from yours to let us know how much it's going to cost.
Oh,
what
well,
to do.
Oh, yes, certainly.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Certainly,
saying.
yeah. We'd have to run cost
Right,
figures and everything.
because I mean, and right now we're just on road and bridges, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is that, doesn't include the mowing or anything like that?
Well,
Does it include the mowing?
Any of the mowing that we do is done in-house by our own
I understand,
folks.
but
The people are in the budget, the equipment is in the budget.
Yeah, but this budget here includes mowing, right?
Yes, sir.
Road and bridge.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
It does
you know-
not include any contract mowing.
I understand, I'm just
Okay.
asking if it's inclusive or not.
Sure.
But, because you and I have talked about this, different times about the mowing and all the precincts, not only mine, by the time it gets to mine again, it's maybe a year later, but, because again, you just mentioned they pull them off, pull them on, they go back to different jobs, and I can understand that.
That's one of the things. Our mowing crews,
And I support that, but my question to you was, is it easier to contract somebody, or is it easier for our staff, your staff to be doing it? What does it cost more? Because I know you priced me one time $56,000. I had mine done, all my 8 precincts, colonias for $45,000. I had to do it on my own because it was getting to be real big and a lot of mosquitoes and all that, so, I don't know, so at one point, sometimes it might be feasible to do that, to subcontract.
Well-
If our guys can't do it on a regular basis, why, do we need more money to contract or what?
we manage 3 or 4 cycles a year, which is really the same thing the state's doing. But I would love to contract it. I just would need the money in the budget to
So, how much
contract it.
more, you have money already for the mowing, so how much more money do you need?
No, sir. The money that's in the budget is, we've got money in there for the people.
Right.
We've got money in there to pay for gasoline and oil for the tractors and that sort of thing, and if they break down, we repair those. But there's not any money in there to actually do any contracting with.
So how much would you spend out of your monies to do the mowing?
We'd have to run a number on it, but
See, that's what I'm trying
if
to
your
get to.
precinct was $40,000 or $50,000, then you
56
can multiply it by 4, and
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you say you got a mowing crew that goes out there
right.
and goes everywhere, what's the expense of that? And if you didn't have that expense, you could use that, part of that as a contract, then, so
Well,
how much more do you need to be able to contract?
If I didn't have that, if we weren't mowing with that crew, they would go into other crews.
Right.
And,
But that money that you use for mowing could be used for contract.
no, sir, it
No,
doesn't
here-
work that way.
No, the only way to compare apples and apples on this is to take the entire budget of $8,750,936 and say, if we eliminated that department, we'd have $8,750,000. How much contracting and how much work could you get for that? Because all the rest of this is built into his budget and most of it's employees. Most of it is personnel cost, so you never eliminate the personnel cost, so he doesn't have extra money in his budget. The only way to truly outsource it would either be to give him a lot more money to outsource,
Well, I understand.
a lot more, or to just say, here's the $8,700,000, we're getting this much work from our department. How much work could we get if we eliminated our department? And I'm not advocating an elimination of the department, so don't let anybody freak out. I'm just saying that's the only way to do an apples and apples comparison.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
But and that's what I'm saying. How much do you need to be able to contract? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you had 56 for my precinct, so I guess you put 56 for each precinct. That's almost over $200,000.
Yeah, just a rough $200,000 for one cycle.
Okay,
And if you want 4 cycles, it's 4 times that.
but you could do the second cycle, right? I mean, instead of you doing 1 or 2, you just do 1. When we contract for 1 cycle, at least it's being done twice a year.
Well, we do more than 1 cycle.
Okay, so that's even better then.
Yeah.
So we contract for 1 cycle, then you either do 1 or 2 cycles instead of 3 cycles.
Well, and that would be fine too.
Yeah, so all you need is an estimate of what would cost the contract for the mowing,
Okay.
I mean, to give us an idea, because, like I said, and I've talked to you many times, and I don't mind doing it, you know me, I mean, if I gotta do it in my precinct, I'm gonna do it, because people call me that the grass is high, mosquitoes and all this stuff, and so I gotta take care of the people out there, so, and I'm sure other commissioners probably get the same calls, that the grass is high and the mosquitoes and everything else, so. But anyway, this is I just need to, maybe you can use a ballpark figure of what would cost, to contract mowing, at least.
Well, I think, Joe, where we're headed with this is that if we wanted to instruct Glenn and Road and Bridge to do mowing outside the normal activities of what they do on a regular basis, we would have to put an amount in the budget for contract mowing. And if we, as a court, the 4 commissioners, decided they wanted to be something mowed in their precinct more than what the normal once a quarter or whatever it is, then it would be up to the commissioners and Public Works. So if we wanted to have a mowing budget with a line item, we'd need to plug in $400,000 or $500,000 into that Public Works budget, and then that money would be available for Road and Bridge for the commissioners to go out and mow in heavy rain or whatever you're talking about. But right now, there's nothing in specifically in our budget for that. So if the court wanted to consider a mowing budget, we'd have to add X number of dollars. And that might be $400,000 or whatever it is.
So I'm asking him to give us.
So if we want to consider that, we just pick a number, and Glenn would mow until he runs out of money. But I think the question that you're asking is, if we want to consider that as a part of the budget, then we just need to ask for them to put in money. Now, I will tell you that if you're asking me to vote for mowing or to vote for asphalt, I'm going to vote for asphalt.
Well, of course, I mean.
Because
I would too, Judge, but I'm just saying,
that's what we have to do.
But, I'm just saying that other things that
Yeah.
we need also besides asphalt to take care of the people out there,
I don't disagree.
Yeah, but again, it's just something we're asking to see where we're at, how much we're looking at, and, we don't know how much we're looking at, we don't know how much to ask for,
We can run some numbers.
Why don't you do that? We'll look at that as an alternative. But what I want to, excuse me, are you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What I want to do is discuss the revenue side. We get about $1 million out of the Road and Bridge Fund. That this year is estimated to be about $1 million, isn't it, Steve? From the Road and Bridge tax or the fund.
Yes.
So the revenue for this whole department really comes out of the general fund. Right.
And most of that is a transfer from the sales tax commission that we get from the state.
All right.
And so what we transfer comes out of there. It does not, it's general funds. It can be used for anything. That's correct.
Right, but the supplemental part of this $8 million budget, $1 million of that comes from the Road and Bridge Fund. And that, if I'm think I'm correct, and I think I am, then how much of the balance of 7 million and whatever it is the direct impact on the general fund allocation? It's transfer out from the general fund, right?
Yes, and we're transferring right now, the current year, we're programmed to transfer $2.5 million in.
All right, then the rest of that sales tax?
The rest of it is, they also, besides they get the $10 road and bridge fee, which is $1.7 million, and that goes directly to them.
All right, the road and bridge fee is part of the license plates, right?
Right.
Where's that $10 come from?
It's from the license plate, yes.
That's right. So that if we sell more license plates in Nueces County, that number goes up. If we don't, it goes down, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's based on registration. Yeah, and Eagle Ford, it was a little more money in then.
Right.
So we're getting $10 for the license, X. We're getting $1 million from the Road and Bridge Fund tax. And then we're getting sales tax of how much?
The sales tax, we're transferring $2.5 million from general fund over this current year.
All right, so general fund's $2.5 million, $1 million from Road and Bridge Fund, $1 million, whatever that is, from the $10 for license. What are the other sources of revenue for the Road and Bridge Fund? That's it?
That's very short. Yeah, and let me go back to Judge, the optional fee is actually, I was looking at a year-to-date total, but the optional, what we budget is $2.9 million from the $10.
All right, so there's $3 million, and $1 million's $4.
So you're $4 million with,
And then $2.5 million from the general fund is $6.5. Okay.
there's some intergovernment revenue in there, Judge. There's additional $500,000 that we transfer from the general fund for the engineering department, because that cannot be funded with,
Okay, I think
that has to be a general fund funded thing.
so. The point I'm trying to get to is that in order for us to add $700,000 to the road and bridge budget, that money is going to have, if we were to do that, and if we were to add money for mowing, whatever that is, then that's going to come, that's a direct hit on the general fund budget, because we're already soaking up all of the license plate money, and we're soaking up the $1 million for the taxes, and so we would have to look at the general fund for another $1 million if we were to do this, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Am I, okay, so,
Yeah, and
so I understand, the court understands, there's not a revenue source out there that you guys have, like the island or whatever, the island parks. This all comes from contributions from X.
Yes, sir.
Now, if we sell a lot of cars in Nueces County, you get a little bit more money, but you don't get $1 million more. When we're looking at this, we're looking at a direct hit on the general fund budget, right?
right, Judge, just to correct on the $10 fee is for renewal or license plate, so that really that doesn't track along with sales of cars.
Okay, so
So that $10
that's
fee
a renewal fee.
That's renewal fee that we get, so that $2.9 million is,
People who renewed their license.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And all the sales tax
but
revenue.
it's a direct reflection of the economy.
Yes, sir.
I mean, if the economy's good, people have more vehicles and they renew them. But even if we had $3 million from that, we're still going to be short $500,000 to $1 million. And that's the point. That's the point I wanted to make. We've had some, and we will have some more. Yesterday we had a lot of really good presentations, and almost every one of those presentations was a general fund item. There wasn't any revenue attached to those, direct revenue attached to those, where some proposed savings and some things that we want to look at. So when we start really analyzing what we're going to do with Road and Bridge, we're going to have to look at where that money would come from, and that money would come out of the general fund, unless I'm wrong. Right. Now, okay, all right. Thank you. Any other questions of Glenn?
Yes, sir.
Please.
Okay. And Your Honor, I just wanted to, and I know you gave us your speech yesterday. I call it Lloyd's Dutch Uncle talk, but
Lloyd's what talk? What do you call it?
Dutch Uncle, where he puts things in pretty simple terms. I know we all have these kind of issues in our precinct, but I wanted to bring this up. This is something I've been working with Glenn on. I have a county road in my precinct that it's actually called East Riverview, which is one of the most highly utilized county roads in my precinct. We did some traffic counts on it here a year or so ago, Glenn, and we were all shocked by the number of cars. And there's two reasons for that. One, this is a road that houses a elementary school, and it's also the backdoor entrance to the Wood River subdivision. And when they put the speed bumps in Wood River, everybody then started using East Riverview because they didn't have. Now we've put our own speed humps in, and I think that has slowed traffic down, but it's still highly used. Well, that road is in terrible condition. It is just, Glenn and them have done all that they can for patching, and it's to the point now where Glenn has said, look, we need to reconstruct this road. So he put the numbers together, and it's, $500,000 to read. It's a long road, and it's going to cost $500,000 to redo this road. And so I know each one of us probably has examples of this in our precinct. And so all I want to do, Your Honor, is just put that out there for food for thought and discussion as we go through our budget process and how at the end of the day we might handle this. I don't know if I know at one time before I came to the court, maybe even before you did, Judge Neal, and Steve, maybe you can elaborate on this, they did a bond where they went and fixed a bunch of roads in the county. I don't know if we're at that point yet or not, or, what we need to do, or what Glenn would recommend, or if that's even something we need to be talking about, but it's just something I want to throw out there for what it's worth.
If I may, Commissioner, you're kind of making the same point that Commissioner Gonzalez did, in that we don't have money in here to do a lot of contracting with. I think we have $30,000 that we use to repair guardrail and things like that. We don't do a capital improvement program. And we try to shoot to rehab about 5 miles of road a year, and we hadn't been making that in the last few years by any means. And that's one of the reasons we're here asking for more money in the material, because all of a sudden we're in a good year when we can get some work done and we're spending it down. Having said that, if we're very limited in our own crews on how many miles we can actually rehab, then the alternative is you either spend money to contract with or the roads get worse overall. We try real hard to maintain the roads that we've got in as good a condition as we can, but fact remains, for the last several years, when we go, and we do road assessments every year, try to do them twice, but if we get one, we're doing good. We're probably running about 35 miles of road out there that needs to be completely rebuilt and beefed up, if you would, to get better, stronger base material in there so that they don't tear up as quickly as they do. So that's where we are.
Yeah, and so my point is, Glenn, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. My point is not to say that we need to appropriate money to give to you. Obviously, if we appropriated more money for road construction like the one we're talking about here, that would have to be a situation where we would go out for bid for somebody to come in and do all that work for us, like they did 10 years ago, whenever it was. It would not be done by your department. It would be done by outside contractors. And we would, we'd do a CO for that or whatever. But I guess what I'm saying, Your Honor, is I don't want us to get in the same situation that the city of Corpus Christi is, where we keep kicking this can down the road.
Yeah, I agree.
Wake up one day and instead of how many miles did you say, 30 miles?
35 miles.
We've got 90 miles of road that needs to be reconstructed for, 10 times the amount of money we're talking about now. We have to figure out a way to keep, and I know we probably can't do all 35 miles in 1 year, but we have to keep putting some money in the kitty here for maintaining our infrastructure in this county so that we don't get into that kind of situation.
I think when we did our 3-year plan with COs, the last year we had identified road money there, but now the matter is whether one can afford to do the COs at this point in time. I mean, but to do a major work on this, there's no way you can take it out of the general fund or the road department.
No, I realize that. Absolutely do. I'll be the first to admit that. I know we don't have the money to do it in our current funds, and so what I wanted to do is put it out there for discussion, because at some point, I'll have to try to figure out some way to scrounge up the money to try to fix this road, because it's vitally important to the people who live in my precinct. This is a highly used road. It's has an elementary school. There's the traffic count from 624 down to that elementary school is 1,800 cars a day. So it's a big deal. So
let me put that hat back on that you had a while ago that you told me I had, but as all of you know, for the last couple of years, what the court has tried to do when we did the COs is we tried to set aside some targeted money for things like DOJ compliance and the other things, but we also set aside $1 million for each commissioner to be used in your precinct for whatever projects you thought you needed to do, including road work. Now, if the court wants to go back to a large issue of COs for road maintenance work, then the court's going to have to make a decision how much money you want to, how much debt you want to have, and then how we're going to pay for the debt. But also, that money would go to Road and Bridge for an additional fund, or to specific roads and the commissioners. But you can, but I would suggest we can't afford to have both a fund for the commissioners to have every year to use to help you do things within your precinct, and go into debt for a large amount or a minimum amount of money for roads, like they did before when the county made a major investment in county roads. That's been 15 years ago, I guess. So I think in the future, Mike, and you've got a great point, this year we're going to be really tight, and we're looking at to bring back to the court a very minimal amount of additional sale of COs this year, because every project we've started so far for compliance with the DOJ has run over the estimate. And we're just now getting the numbers for this courthouse, and we put aside about $4 million for this courthouse, and I'll bet you it's not going to come close to that. So the court this year is going to have to look at an additional CO issue of X, and of that X, a large portion of that's probably going to have to be set aside for compliance with what we know we have in that top 10 buildings that we've already committed to do. And that doesn't leave a lot of money for things like roads or elevators or maintenance on roofs and other things that we have to have, and money for the commissioners to do things within their precinct. So that your discussion's great, and we want to have that in a few weeks when we sit down and start really figuring all this out. I think what you're going to find is that our CO commitment this year is going to be less than we've done the last 2 years, and it's going to be more specifically directed to funding what we know we're going to have to fund for the DOJ compliance over the next couple of years. So it's going to be an interesting discussion, and I'm not saying we can't do things, because we certainly can, but there's a limit to what we can do and stay within the parameters of this court, and the reflection on the tax rate and everything else. So you've got a great point, and this is something we want to make a discussion about, but we need to all recognize there's just so much out there. And when I keep talking about where is this money coming from, invariably it's a hit on the general fund. And when it starts hitting the general fund, that has a limit, because we have other restrictions where we're trying to maintain 25% balance, and we're not there right now, where we're trying to maintain a 25% balance in the general fund for reserves. We have a lot of other expenses you guys are going to see as we unfold over the next few weeks that are going to hit the general fund really hard this year, really hard, and we're working on that for the court. But all of these things are a great discussion. I appreciate them very much, and this is an important thing, and getting that road fixed is important.
No, and Your Honor, I want to make it perfectly clear, I understand all that.
I know you do,
I understand that.
but I got to say it anyway.
I know you do. I know you do.
Dutch Uncle Lloyd. He wanted to reiterate the Dutch Uncle speech.
When I say those things, he gets the same look on his face my dad used to get when I'd ask him for money. But I understand those things, and I know we have to live within our means, but I just wanted to throw that out for food for thought.
I respect that very much, all of you. I respect all of you.
And I
Boeing and everything else. I got
expressed
that.
to you in conversations, and I want this. I think needs to be a part of our conversation.
You bet.
Here in a couple of weeks is how we address the ADA thing on a go-forward basis. Somebody called me the other day and mentioned something to me that I thought was kind of brilliant that I never, maybe there's some, we go to the federal government and say, look, we need to borrow some money to do all this. Maybe they've got some kind of 1% loan deal or something that we can do. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, but I thought, well, that's not a bad idea. At least we could ask. But maybe we need to go back to the DOJ and say, look, this is going to end up costing a lot more than we thought it was, and we need more time.
Well, we've done that once, and they gave us an extension, so we got another 5 years, so we're working on that. But we'll get there. We got a lot to talk about. This is not part of Road and Bridge today. I had to simply make my speech to get it off my chest. But anyway, thanks, Glenn. Anybody got any other questions?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Then we're through with Road and Bridge, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me go. Yeah, Glenn, I saw here on 1520, the building, Bishop Building.
Okay.
And again, I think you and I talked about it, and there's a report that Mario did on the roof of the county building, and you and I talked about it because it's deteriorating quite a bit.
Yes, sir.
The air conditioning units there need to be replaced. I'm surprised you didn't put none of that in here, so we can at least look at it, because
Under 1520, money like that is pooled in a larger, and I don't.
wherever it's pooled doesn't make. I mean,
All the major capital is in 1,500, I believe.
It's in 1570.
1570.
Yes, we've put all the repairs and maintenance for the buildings in the 1570.
well, but it's something that needs to be brought up, sooner or later, because we really that building's been upgraded. I mean, I don't know if you've been out there or not, maybe not, but that building has been upgraded almost 100%. As far as expansion of the library, the inside of the council's office and all this would be painted and the floors, but, that's not in my budget, because I know it should be out of the building budget, but I'm not doing it out of my budget because there's some of the monies that I requested from the CO money, Judge, and I'm doing that.
I know.
And the fire station is almost like the old county building was, and nobody giving any tender love and care. But now, if you look at it, go by there now, it's almost about halfway finished. It's going to be a multi-purpose center that the county's going to have out there. And we're doing all this, and then for the roof to start leaking, and it's going to be a problem. So I just want to bring it to the court, open court, that if we're doing all those upgrades and all those, and then something happened because we didn't repair the roof, and then again, I'm going to ask for probably more money, but it's something that we wait longer. Like you said, it's going to be like the old county building, because the top of it, Mario gave a good report of what was up there, and so I just want to make sure that it's something that we need to really consider.
I might interject. I mean, if it's a replacement of the whole roof, it's again something that we don't do out of his budget. We don't fund that budget that way. It'd have to be through a CEO again. I know the Hilltop roof is $1 million project that ultimately several years ago got funded with a combination of your money and the CO's, but Glenn's budget in no way can handle replacement of roofs and renovation.
And I understand that, Steve, but I mean, when I bring it to him, I guess he should come to you, right? I mean,
Well, no, it comes to the
It's
court
not road,
yourself.
we're on road and bridge.
No,
This is
no,
not road and bridge.
no,
I mean,
we're
this says not, aren't we on road and bridge right now?
Glenn's here, he's talking about Public Works right now.
Public Works.
The workshop, what's supposed to, a workshop is not specific, we,
Okay, so, but none of this stuff is in either road and bridge, which I thought that's all we were doing, or anything to do with Glenn's budget, right? I mean, we don't have those kind
it
of things in.
hasn't,
No, but what he's saying is this money's never been in his budget,
that's right.
Well, but I'm saying when
any of it.
I know, but when you discuss it with Public Works, I mean, at least we sit down and talk about it, and your engineer did a survey, and, and something you need to bring it to the judge, or bring it to Steve, and
Yes,
say,
sir, and we do that. We've got a whole list of
But it hasn't
probably
been done.
$15 million worth of work that needs to be done.
And that's true, when we've done budget work and we put on major projects, Glenn usually gives me a list of major projects that they're on there for consideration of whether we can fund
is
them
the
or
roof
not.
there, is the roof there?
Yes, sir, it's on.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's on.
So, okay, I just want to make sure it's there, I want to come back later
No,
on and say,
It's on there.
Okay.
There's, yeah,
Okay.
it's one of those other things that needs to be
yeah,
done.
and if I can, I'll help whatever I can, I'm doing, like, as far as the inside, and, you got my help.
And you have, and that's good.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanna make
Anything
sure.
else in Public Works? Okay, thanks, Glenn. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Good morning, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir.
What are you? You're
Good morning, you all ready for me?
Yes, ma'am, are you two?
Yes, I am, I'm too.
Nice to see you.
More often than always, right. I've got some packets for you that I've prepared and pass those out.
Your Honor, she's only asking for $650.
Ooh,
Move we approve that.
I don't know where he's getting his information from, but without being rude, Commissioner, I'm going to have to correct you here a little
Okay, I'm
bit.
sorry, Your Honor. I wasn't reading the fine print.
Exactly. That's very important. We always have to read that fine print. It'll trick us.
Well, that's what I read.
Well, it is 650, but it's for something else. But I'm here to come before you just for the full-time. My staff worked very hard for these little packets, so make sure you look at every single thing in there. We will go through that. So what I'm here for this morning, if we're ready, first of all, I want to say good morning, Judge Neal and Commissioners and everyone else in the Commissioners Court. And I do want to thank you again for allowing me to, if I can have a copy of the additional page, Teresa, just that one little one, the little one. I have the other one. This one, thank you. Okay. I'm here because of the changes in the law with the truancy, conduct, and parent contributing to non-attendance. The first document that you're going to be looking at, which is the reference OCA, and all our reports are reference to OCA, which is the Office Court of Administration. I'm sure you all are aware of that. And these numbers that I'm giving you were reports that were run through that program out of Austin, Texas. The first one that I want to show you is the truancy and parent contributing, and how the numbers have increased from when I came into office. I called Mr. Waterman and asked him what y'all wanted, what time range y'all wanted, and he said our fiscal year, which is October 1st through September 30th. So the first year, it's part of the ending of Judge Cox's year and my beginning first year. Those are the numbers that we had: 371 in truancy and 677 in parent contributing. The following year was my first full year, which was 15 through 16. The numbers went down a little bit, and that is because that is when the new law went into effect with not this last session, but the session before that with the truancy conduct. It's no longer a criminal case. It's a civil matter now, and there are petitions that are filed now instead of probable cause and complaints. And those numbers went down primarily because it was a new law. There was a whole bunch of things that not only the school districts, but the counties had to take into effect, and new forms and this and that. And so everyone was kind of learning the new law, so that's why our numbers went down a little bit. Not everybody was kind of filing like they should be. The following year is this past year, October 16 through September 30th of 17, well, to the current date. Those are my numbers. That's how much we've increased, from 297 to 525 in truancy, and 533 to 961 in parent contributing non-attendance. That's my court.
Wait, is this, I'm sorry, am I on the right page on this one, right?
No, not yet. This very first one. This
I'm
one.
sorry.
Right there.
Oh, okay.
That's just my court. But the next one is all courts for parent contributing and truancy, so that you can compare my courts to all the other JP courts. And the sheet after, they're color-coded, so you can see that. If you want exact numbers, it's the page after that, which is like JP1 went from, they're the green, they went from 837 to the following year to 251, which is the next set of graphs, the October 1st through September 30th, and then this year to 838, just in the total truancy and parent contributing non-attendance. Okay, so those are total numbers for each court.
Let me ask you, I'm confused then, and that's the one I was getting to, is why did JP12, and I don't know who's who, sorry.
JP12 is Judge Santana.
Okay, so why did that one go from 1447 to
Correct.
0?
Right, because this past year, CCISD chose to file only in 2 JP courts for all of their schools.
But wait, okay.
They used to file in 5, and this is just CCISD, but that's how drastic our numbers changed because of CCISD. They chose only to file in 2 JP courts.
Well then, but wait a minute, that's not fair. I mean,
I know it's not fair, but the law says I can't tell them you can't file in my court. I can't say you've got to file in 5 JP courts.
well, can we go work with because I'm assuming part of your request is justifiably
Due to that, yes, sir.
due to the
Due to
fact
that.
that they're, so wouldn't we be served, as a court to go and say, hey guys, can you give us a break here? You're going to make us pay for all this extra
You can,
staff?"
but I can't.
We did.
Mhm.
We did. I met with the representative of CCISD, and I can't remember the
Mr.
gentleman's
Harrington.
name.
Mr.
Right,
Harrington.
Harrington. When they made this decision, I raised the same question that you've raised, Commissioner. I said, what you're going to do is you're going to shift all the workload over to 2 or 3 courts, and it unfairly burdens the county because we're going to be asked to support a much larger
Right.
workload in those courts. And the answer came back was, have a nice day. This is basically what we want to do, and because it simplifies their world. They can only file in the 2 or 3 courts. They don't have to prepare for 8 courts or 9 courts.
And it's easier to work with 2 courts with
That's
the
right.
dockets
That's right.
versus
Now,
5
your
courts.
point is well taken.
Yes.
And I suggested at that meeting that perhaps as a part of this reorganization, they would want to contribute something to us to help us serve the workload in those courts. And then I got reminded that their budget's in trouble too. So, yes.
So wait a minute, you met with Mr. Harrington, who I'm sure, I don't know who that is.
Yeah,
He's the director of the truancy officers for
Okay.
CCISD.
Right.
Okay, well, I'm saying, why don't we go make I think we ought to talk to the board members and the CCISD superintendent. I don't mean to cut you off, but this is completely, in my opinion, unfair, ridiculous.
And
It's
Benavides
almost-
and I are the ones that have the the meat.
No,
of
I get it. It's not your fault.
No, it isn't.
I'm just now talking to the court here for a second because this is basically like an unfunded mandate. We're being told by CCSD, tough bananas, we're going to do what we want to do, and it doesn't matter what it's going to cost you, the county, because we're going to now have to hire another $40,000 worth of employees to support, whether if this was spread out like it was before, we wouldn't be having to make this request wouldn't be made. So they're basically giving us an unfunded mandate, and Judge Rodriguez has no choice but to come before us because she's like, hey, I can't do this, which she can't, but if this was spread out the way it used to be, she wouldn't be here making this request.
Probably not.
And so this is, I mean, I
got it.
She had me at hello.
I have, and I also
This isn't
have.
right. I mean,
When I heard about it was going to happen, I didn't think it's right either.
I think we need to go have meetings with
And honestly, if
CCISD.
CCISD wanted to file every single case in my court, I can't say you can't. That's against the law.
And so then what rights do we have if they're going to buck up and say, sorry, too bad, we don't have any concern over your cost. You can't assign those as a judge or as JP. You don't have the right to assign those cases out. I'm just asking. I don't know the answer.
No, sir. No, sir.
So and please make a
With
presentation. I don't mean to cut
truancy,
you off.
no, it's
I
fine.
get where
I'm here
you're-
to answer all your questions.
No,
That's
yeah,
why I'm
you're
here
in a bad
today.
spot.
So
get-
I wanted to come before you so that you could understand exactly where I'm at and what I'm facing.
And is Judge and who's the other one?
Benavides.
So is he going to come make the same request?
He has more employees than I do.
Yeah.
And I'll show that to you here in just a bit.
Okay, but I mean,
Okay, yeah. And I also have Olive Flower Bluff.
No, I get
And
it.
then I have 2 charter schools also, and from what I understand, Westoso is really interested in filing in my court now instead of where he was before. Mr., what's his name, the new superintendent?
Anyway, I get it.
Okay, so there's
Hold on one second. So, Judge, what I would like to do is finish hearing her presentation, but
Then we need to have another discussion on
oh my
CCISD.
gosh! I mean, I hope maybe Commissioner Matas can help us with that because this is. I mean, Benavides is coming next. Well, I mean, it's.
Well, again,
He's gonna
Benavides
get-
has more staff than I do.
Well,
He may
okay.
not be up here.
But
Yeah.
he may not have enough staff to do.
Right.
800
And I'll show you everything else that's based on all cases or just truancy. I'm not
Okay.
basing it just on truancy. It's
No,
the
and I
whole
know.
court in general.
Like I said,
Okay, so-
you have no choice here. I get
Right,
it.
right. So the next one, which is the reference OCA, which is going to have the civil, criminal, and juvenile one, which is this one that we're looking at, this graph right here. On the right-hand side, it has your color-coded. That is a total for every single case in every JP court. And again, these stats, these numbers are from OCA, so that's where I receive these numbers from, and that's where we report all of our numbers to the state of Texas with Austin. So those are my numbers in my court. They went from, you can see the differences from 554 in civil to 914 the second year and 704 the third year. But again, my criminal went from 1593 to 1109, and I'm at 1130 now. So. And then the juvenile went from 371 to 297 to 525. That's my court. Now, the following page, I did every single court, and you can see the numbers, the 3 years that we're looking at. And again, my court exceeds every court into the current year. Like you're looking at the purple one, Judge Santana went from, if you look at the numbers, if you want to have exact numbers without just looking at the color-coded graphs, he went from 3,326 for all cases on the first year, October 1, 14 to 15. Then the second year, he went to 2,064, and then now he's at 1,215. So, and my court has the most in this last year, in this current year, you can see the light blue has the most of all cases in our court. That includes civil, criminal, and truancy. Every single case that we get filed in our court. That's overall. So I wanted you to be able to see that too, that I'm not just looking at truancy, I'm not basing it just on that, but that is a huge reason why I'm there. And then the last one, which says employees, this one right here, that one is what each court has, the number of employees that each court has. One has 4 full-time. They have the administrator and then 3 clerks. 1, 2, so on and so forth. They have 4. Balderas has 3 because they have 3 full and 1 temp. And Woolsey has 4 full. I have 3 full and 1 temp. So what and then so on and so forth with the rest. So what I'm wanting to do is I want to just, I'm not asking for a whole new full-time and leave my temp. I just want to convert my full to a full, I'm sorry, my temp to a full. Okay? And the next one where it says statewide, that's just an idea of what we're looking at, also statewide. My court, Nueces County, not just my court, Nueces County does have total the most in truancy and parent contributing from the whole state of Texas. So Nueces County was first, and that's including Benavides, Me, Santana, all of Nueces County for truancy and parent contributing. Those are our numbers there.
Wait, whoa, Judge. So let me make sure I understand you. You're saying that Nueces County is the number one county in the state of Texas for truancy cases?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And again,
Another number one we can be proud of.
well, and again, let me correct that. It does look really bad. Do we have a truancy problem? Yes, we do. But it's not based on the fact that we just have that problem in general. It's based on the fact that the last session, we did have these changes in the law, and there are a lot of counties that are still not filing and school districts that are not filing. But we are. We're following the law.
That's what's happened.
And that's what I was going to say, 'cause that's one of the trends I heard in my years in the
Yes.
school district.
Yes.
There's a lot of non-reporting.
Correct.
That's the issue, and I think it kind of
That's right.
goes to show our commitment from our schools.
Correct.
Really
Yep.
going after this issue. And by the way, I did text Dr. Hernandez, so I'm waiting for a response for him to get an answer to our concerns.
Yes. So, yeah, that's based on the fact that Nueces County is on board day one, which was August the 1st of 2015. We were prepared, and that was all in effects to the truancy committee that we did. There are still no counties that did create that truancy committee that we had, that Judge Neal and Mayor Martinez created. So that's in fact to that. So, and the next one, there's just those numbers broken down for each county. You can see those, and I've highlighted those for you. So the last thing that I was passing out to you were this sheet, and that just shows the monies, the difference of what I'm asking. My temp is, of course, a temp step, and we're paying $9.01 for hourly rate, and at 29 hours a week, for a total annual salary of $13,300. And I wish what I'm asking of you today, this morning, is to make that position a full-time, and those are the differences right there. Now, I do know that there's so much more that goes into play with a full-time employee, which is the insurance, and so on and so forth, retirement, and I know that it's much more than just this money here, so I do know that. But this is what I have before you this morning, so that you can compare in reference to that. And I do want to also bring to your attention that it takes a lot to create a truancy case. It's so much more that goes into it than like a traffic ticket. Officer files a ticket, most defendants enter a plea, pay it, and that's it, you're done. This has so much more to create, the file that we have to create, the forms that we have to have, the court that it goes into, the dockets, the summonses, and so on and so forth. So it does take a lot of work from my staff to complete that and to be up to date and current with everything. Any questions for me?
You've done a nice job, Judge, and we appreciate all the hard work, and this really is interesting data, and the committee she was referring to was a mandated committee
Correct.
by the legislature 2 sessions ago, and Scott Elliff headed that committee for us, and they did an awful lot of work on this, made a lot of really good recommendations. The problem was that the legislature says you'll do this, but there's no teeth in it, you don't have to do it.
Correct.
So,
You just have to create that, but you don't have to put it in play.
Homer is involved in this.
Homer Flores was the lead of that.
Homer was the chair. You're
Yes,
right.
correct.
Homer was the chair. I'm sorry. Homer was the chair. And they just did a great job and made all the recommendations and basically said, now, we didn't put any teeth in it. You don't have to do it.
You don't have to put that into play. It doesn't have to.
And they didn't.
And I think, I'm sorry, Judge, I'm sorry, I apologize. I think what we're looking at overall is that the larger counties they have a truancy court only, because this is how big it is, and it is getting to be a very bad problem. I say it's an epidemic, it really is, and most people in our community don't know that there is a truancy problem out there. That is the meat of my court, and we took the proper steps, and Nueces County is doing a great job. We're current, and we're up to the law, and we're complying with whatever the state says.
Judge, I have a couple of questions. On the, when you mentioned that West Osa may be looking at filing in your precinct, does any of that fall into precinct 2, though? I thought
For truancy and parent contributing, it's in Nueces County. The student or the school has to be either in the county or in the county that the student resides in. Because, you've got some that live in Corpus but go to London, and different things. Or they live in Bishop. They live in Kingsville and they're going to Bishop school district. So that school can file in either where the student lives or where the school district
And
is,
with the law-
either county.
Commissioner, the law says as long as you live in Nueces County, you can file anywhere you want. It's not about precinct or what's.
No, not with truancy. It's county. It's based on county.
County for the truancy.
But Judge, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I mean, I think that's, something, a simple conversation now that we kind of know, and I know you can go and have your conversations with the superintendent there, but, once again, it's something that we can have on our end to kind of try to preempt that and try to balance this out, because this is a very unfair burden that we have on a couple of courts. And leading to that, is there like any kind of case managers that work within your court or work
We have a
for all the
juvenile
courts?
case manager.
And is that able to help with any of your workload
Not the
that you
process,
have?
not the
the
actual
process.
starting of it, no. The juvenile case manager has its own job description and has absolutely nothing to do with the process of the case, other than they're assigned to some cases that I assign in court. I may assign the case manager to manage the child themselves.
Well, we're not going to put my former colleague and board president, Janie Bell, on the spot, but it's good to see her. Hey, Janie. And
We're glad you're
we had
here
a
for.
concern with Dr. Hernandez, so you may hear from the county later on concerning truancy, so just to make you aware of that. I know you're wearing a different hat today, but it's good to see
Yeah.
you.
And the other thing, is, when they come to my court, I can't say, well, I already have 1,000 cases, you've got to go to another court. I can't. It's just like saying, well, you already filed 10 felonies in my court for warrants. You've got to go to another court. We have absolutely, that's unethical.
And Judge, can you help me, because since I wasn't here, but
yeah.
the last boundary drawings for the JP courts, I mean, I'm assuming that we'll take all of this into consideration in the future, but is that anything that was in play when it was drawn a few years ago, or is this?
No, not at all. Again,
No.
it's county. They can file
We didn't-
anywhere in the county.
We didn't change the boundaries, but what we did do is we looked at these exact same numbers, and we moved staff.
Yes.
We took
Yep.
the courts that were,
Well, that's when
very
1-2
few
was
cases.
created.
and some
2-1.
of them had more staff than they needed, and we just moved them over to, like Janice Stoner's
Right.
court, we moved one or two people over there, and I think we moved one to Judge Cox's, and so we just...
They took from one court and put in that
That's what I'm
court.
saying. I'm not necessarily saying truancy, because obviously the judge showed that there's a trend growing there on the criminal side, and just, I'm sure, with your cases in general.
Correct.
And it's so centralized that it covers a big chunk of the county, whereas you look other parts, the population
Correct.
doesn't really match. Obviously, it matches the numbers, and that's why we see kind of a lower
Right.
trend there. So.
At one point, we even met with the CCISD, I remember, Judge, they were willing to pay for a case manager at one point, and when that's when Dr. Chavez was there, and then Scott Elliott was there, then we, they were going to do it, and so I don't know what happened in between that, but, when I was a JP, I went and met with him several times.
Yes.
And they had agreed to pay for a case manager, okay, have 2 case managers.
Right.
But, you said something that we need to think about, really, is that we need to consider probably having a juvenile court.
Correct, and that's what it is getting to.
Juvenile-
It has, and
And that court won't handle anything but juveniles and
Correct.
truancies and everything else, and no small claims and no eviction and all that. But
nothing else but truancy.
that's the only way really you're going to centralize it, and you're going to be able to work with it, so.
Correct. And that is what a lot of the larger counties have done already. Tarrant County and Bear and Harris, they're already putting that into play. I think even some smaller, like Collin County, I think, also only has a truancy court, just to take care of that primarily, nothing else.
And I guess the question there, it begs the question there, because if that's the direction we're going, if CCISD is set on doing it the way they're doing it, and they're not going to change their position if we go and visit with them about it, and this is news to me today, so I haven't had a chance to even do that, and I'm glad, Janie's sitting here, but if they're not, and if that's the trend, then my question becomes, doing what Commissioner Pusley talks about is, if we're going to go ahead, if we're going to create a truancy court, then how does that work? Do we have to designate them as a truancy court so that nobody else can then file in that court?
Correct, yes.
Then if that's the way we do that, to me, with all due respect to your request, I'd rather designate a truancy court and not bring in extra staff right now, and let all the other cases that she or whoever's going to be the truancy court go somewhere else, and let those cases filter out to the other JPs before we just hire some extra staff here, to me, this is a stopgap type situation.
The question would be whether or not we can just unilaterally do that, or whether it takes state law to do it.
And that's
No, I think it was
that's the question.
And honestly, if I may add, I think that the reason why CCISD chose to do this had a lot to do with what each court was doing as far as handing out court orders and things like that, and how quickly courts heard their cases also. Because for this year, I finished. I heard all my cases that were just brand-new cases that were filed. I do not carry 1 year into the next school year because we do have our repeat offenders
And I get that,
get
and-
confused. So that was one of the
I get
main
that, but
reasons
I
why
think-
they chose to do it this way.
Right, and I get that. That's why there's a specialty court over at Court 5, which
Right.
quite frankly, I think is the wrong way to do it, because then you have the same judge doing it, and it burns that judge out. But if a judge takes on that court, knowing what that judge is getting, then that's fine. But my little burn, there's two sides to every story, is that, if Judge Neal has sat down with CCISD, Mr. Harrington, whoever that is, and he basically said, I don't really care what your costs are, we're going to do it this way. No, I get it, but I mean, the result was that. That's a little problemsome, because I guess you initiated that meeting? I don't know how that.
Meeting of the JPs, and it was a meeting of the JPs, and I had a chance to contribute to that meeting.
Right, so.
And you will no longer just news.
Hold on, let me finish my thought.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. What I'm saying is, what it would have been good to do is sit down with CCISD and say, hey, we have a problem. We think the best way to go is a truancy court. Okay, great. Then let us react by saying, well, that's going to cost us another $40,000 a year if we put it all in one court without having some time to adjust. In other words, there should have been maybe a meeting of the minds between the Commissioners Court and the CCISD board, so that we weren't faced with now a $40,000 request for new staff that we can't afford.
Correct.
And so something fell out of line. That's not their fault or our fault. That just didn't happen. So to me, if I get it, I understand it. If I understand CCISD's logic, I just wish we would have all had some more communications so that we could have reacted differently, and then you hadn't had to go and do all this and put together this presentation and say, I've got to have new staff, and we could have said, whoa, hold on. Why don't we create a truancy court, shift all your other work to the other JPs,
Correct.
and then we don't have to hire $40,000 worth of additional staff.
Correct.
And so the question is, I don't want to screw her by not, giving her the staff she needs, but I don't want to screw us and have to, so can we go and figure out how to create a truancy court, if that's what all these school districts want, and then shift all those other cases to the other JPs, and then we may not end up having to have additional staff, and we may end up serving a good purpose by having a truancy court if that's what is wanted, and then whoever the judge of that truancy court is knows, hey, all you're going to do now is truancy, and if you accept that responsibility, then you've accepted that responsibility as the truant judge for the rest of your life, or the or the
Yes.
term of that, and if you stay there, great, and if whoever runs for the when you're gone, they know this is the truancy court. So if you don't want to do truancy, don't come here.
And that was one of the things that in the truancy committee that was created with Homer Flores that led that. They asked me and other the municipal court judges that dealt with truancy if we were going that way, and I said probably we are. And they asked if I minded doing that. I said no, I don't. But currently, I have a job to serve my constituents of Precinct 2, and I have to do everything else, not just that. And it's going to be all of Nueces County, every single school district in Nueces County. That's Westoso, Calallen, Toloso, every single county. Port Aransas, Bishop.
Maybe it's 2. I don't know. I don't know what the right number is.
And they asked me that, and I said, honestly, I think, in my opinion, if you value it at all, is that in the beginning, I think we should have 2. Not one.
That was the
and that was just
recommendation
talk.
of the committee. After everything was done and said, the committee came back, Mr. Homer and Miles and all them, and everybody agreed to those recommendations. And the recommendation was that we should create probably a juvenile court. Maybe 2.
Eventually.
Start with 1 juvenile court.
But that's where we have to work with the ISDs, because they can still we can have 2 of them, but they may say, well, we're going to all file in Judge Rodriguez's
And I
court
can't
and
say
file
no.
none over here. So if we have 2 and the ISDs aren't buying into, hey, you guys go here.
Juvenile court, it's got to be a juvenile court. They got no choice to file but there.
But if you have 2, they have a choice.
Yeah. And that's why you have to start with one to see how it's going to work, and I think that since the other JP 2-1 has 0 now, and they got 3 staff, well, maybe
Four.
one of those need to move to your.
Correct, and that was my idea, sir.
So that one needs to be moved.
That was actually my idea.
Well,
That's very
I may
simple.
not get a vote or a say in it, but I do want to say this. I don't support creating a juvenile court. I think that's a wrong way to go here. I think we need to do 2 things. One, we need to go to CCISD and say, look, we're kind of partners here. We ought to be able to work this out where it's, a benefit to everybody. But to say that let's just say, for instance, we're going to make your court the JP court, then that means that everybody who files a truancy case in Robstown or Calallen or Alwaducy or wherever have to drive all the way to Flower Bluff to have their truancy case heard. And I think that's totally unfair to those people who live in those remote precincts.
Correct, and that is what we'll be
So,
looking at, unless we have
I
2.
am never going to vote to support, and I may be the only one to vote against it, but I'm never going to support creating a
Okay.
truancy court. I think that's the wrong way to go.
Well, we got way off this
balance
deal right here.
And the other thing that I do want to bring to your attention is that Mr. Harrington is no longer there. So we will be looking at a new person. He is now, went back to he went to King High School. So they will be, I don't even think they've posted that position yet. So we have no idea
Well,
who's going to be in that position.
Judge, we appreciate the hard work, and you're coming in and pointing these things out. In all fairness to everybody in all this discussion, when these numbers started to change is when the law changed. And this county the school districts in this county made a really good decision to go ahead and use the new law as best you can, because it's no longer a criminal case, and there were a lot of us who thought the legislature made a mistake.
I do too. I feel very strongly about that.
We took this off, and I never thought that was really done well, but I'm not a lawyer and I'm not in the legislature, but what has happened is the shifting of this interpretation and enforcement of the new law has created a lot of this problem.
Correct.
And so as we deal with your request this budget year, it may very well be that it's going to take another legislative session to help us do some of the other things, but we can see what the CCISD and the others want to do about maybe looking at the shifting of the load. So thank you.
Not a problem. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, your hard work.
And just call me if you have any questions. I'll be
All
more
right.
than happy to come and answer any questions. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you very much. Commissioner, it's always scary to me when I look out here and Scott has brought his board and his chairman and his members, and you're sitting over there with a smirk on your face, and here comes the good news, I can tell.
I'm just a humble public servant, Your
Humble
Honor. I'm
public
here to
servant,
support
right.
their efforts the best I can, sir.
Before you make that decision. Okay, guys, you're up. It's good to see the coastal parks here. I welcome the board. You're always welcome, and I'm glad you're here.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Well, y'all know me, and that's my board, and I'm happy to have them here. It's usually me just standing up here. But we did post the agenda because, in case we had a quorum, we only got 3, 4 is a quorum for us. So you've got my budget packet. I'm not sure if you've all had a chance to look through it. I want to be real forthcoming in that what we're asking for in our budget packet is requiring an increase in allowance from the general fund. So I just want to put that out there right now. No, I haven't.
You should have heard it. Okay, go ahead.
He's made it a couple times. He'll do it again. Don't worry.
Okay. Make it again.
You're all right. You'll get a chance.
Okay. Can y'all hear me? Okay. Well, all I can do is put it out there and be transparent with you guys. Well, this is a very unusual request for us because for the most part, since I've been here for 8 years and probably going back further than that, we've had budget requests, but we've not specifically asked for an increase in allowance for anything or any one line item other than working with the revenues that we generate to offset and help offset what we get from the cost of goods and services that we sell out there. What's happened to get us to a point to where we're not comfortable with where our fund balance is about 3 years ago, I came on board in May of '09, and so there was a big push supporting the mission of our board back then, and that was to be a revenue-generating source for the county and to increase the level of customer service and what we do to be a mainstay in the travel and tourism industry. And so we worked real hard, and our revenue line items revenues started to spike, and they were going up. And then about 3 years ago, they started leveling off. Well, at that same time frame, we were working on cutting back on expenses while still delivering the same quality of service that we needed to deliver. We're just trying to do it with less resources, especially spending less money. And we were able to do that for a while, and we grew this big, healthy fund balance. Well, as those revenue line items started, flattening out, well, here on the expense side and taking care of the facilities and everything that goes with the kind of services we're providing, that still kept creeping up, and which caused us to have to reach further and further into our fund balance to take care of different things, whether it's facilities, operations, what have you. And so that's kind of how we've gotten to where we're at. Although there is a silver lining here. Now, and as far as we know, from the meetings we've had, we do not think there's ever been a request for increase in specific operational line items from the general fund, and many years from us. And yes, salaries, benefits, y'all take care of that, excluding that. But we've also had another problem that's really created a big problem for us this year, and that is not getting that Phase 1 Padre Bali Park opened up with all the problems we've had there. And to date, I went back and I ran the figures based on occupancy rates. To date, outside of what that has cost us and cost this county to try to fix those problems out there, it's cost you, and it's still climbing, $236,000 in additional revenue that we're not seeing because we're not opened up out there. And that's a really big hit. I could say that where we're projecting our fund balance to be at the end of this year, if I had that kind of revenue.
Scott,
yes, sir.
You said we're taking a hit because we're not getting the revenue, but we're not losing anything, right?
You're losing 236.
We could make some money, but we're not losing anything we have now.
No, we're not bleeding anywhere else as far as money, as far as our revenue producing potential. So, but another thing that the board wanted me to point out, and it's going to play really big in our favor coming into the next fiscal year, is I'm not sure if y'all are aware of this, but over the last 8.5 years that this department has brought in, and this number is going to shock you, $11,808,573.19 in grants, and that includes the Bucket 1 funds that we will see. Hopefully, we'll get a contract through the Department of Treasury by the end of the fiscal year. That's the word on the street. They're going to try to execute those contracts, and that's including $7.5 million there. And the important thing they wanted me to point out here on that is that those funds have contributed to not contributed to offsetting operating costs, but they've contributed to adding great value to coastal parks, the county, and the coastal Bend region as far as the economic impact. So I think our request, it encourages continued investment and growth and expansion of our department out there, and we're going to see results from it. So with that being said, if you want, I'll go through the weeds of 180, 181, and 182. Y'all ready?
Yeah, no, I just had one quick question.
Yes, sir.
I haven't been involved, so I apologize, but you said that something's not open at Valley. What's not open in
the Phase 1, we took, when, was it 15, 16, the COs, $3 million?
Yeah, Commissioner, this is the issue that we've discussed in closed session regarding the problems that we've had with
the RV park.
Yes, sir.
we had a phase one expansion where we took different Precinct 4 funding sources along with some CO monies and dedicated them down there, and then some at IB McGee, which we're working on right now. And it's just been a complete mess, a failure. And so we're still not open out there. We've got a ways to go to fix some problems. And
Okay.
that's okay. So in 180, fix this thing here. So going down through here, we've asked for some increased support on temporary salaries. Where we are hammering. This is a second year in a row. We're hammering overtime. And we're constantly having to, Steve can testify to this very well, we're constantly having to move money around to cover overtime because of the demand for our services out there. IB McGee, we're running 93% occupancy rates annually. And so we can't just close the door at 5 o'clock and walk away and say, okay, customers, y'all have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow morning. So we're requesting some additional increase in that line item there to help us with managing all of our operations, including Packard Channel Nature Park, which has become a huge destination venue for ecotourism, using temp salaries all the way around. The next one we're looking at is we've got some office expenses, a request for increase in $1,000. That's mainly, if you look at your narratives and justifications, that's mainly to help us with the computer software and stuff necessary for the expansion of these parks. Once we get Padre Bali open up, we will have doubled that park, and we're in plans and specs now, and we're fixing to almost double IB McGee. That's just in phase one. So you're doubling the capacity of both your RV parks just in phase one. Then you've got, in your non-capital outlay, again, some more equipment necessary to run reservation check-in stations at these both park locations. And there's a small implement we would like to get there to help with some of the maintenance at backhoe. Then you get into telephone and utilities. We have a hard time figuring out exactly if we're 100% accurate on what we're asking to increase, because we don't necessarily see our utility bills. And so we're sure on that. We don't get our water bill. They get our water bill, and we get told what it is. And when we can go down there and request it and make copies if we want. But the auditors, the bill goes straight to them.
Yes, our office handles that, and we actually do all of the year-end projections of what the utilities are going to be. So generally, you'll see on the first page that they don't do that. That item is blocked off to actually request the money, but that they put the additional in just the justification part. But we do the year-end analysis so we will see what the.
So you're projecting they need an increase of $172,000 in utilities?
Well, they actually gave us those numbers, but part of the problem was that. One of the locations was actually being coded to inland parks instead of island parks, so part of that's covering that transfer to get it in the correct department. And then also there was
So I've been paying Commissioner Chesney's utility bill?
Yeah, you sure have, for years.
You worked out fine.
Yeah, apparently so, yeah.
And then also there was a meter that was replaced.
So do I get some of that $7.5 million back? There's some interest on that too, Scott.
All right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and then there was also a meter that was replaced, and once that was replaced, and it's being read correctly now, unfortunately, that bill did go up, and so that has created the significant costs.
Yeah, the meter that was out at Padre Bay, we don't know for how many years it's been inaccurate. But anyhow,
I think it's time to move on.
No filter, huh? Okay, so in this line item, there's one thing that we're still trying to narrow down. Lance Murphy wants our computer system networked back to the courthouse. Right now, we're just out there on our own. We're not connected to anything back here at the courthouse at all. We have our own server. And so he wants an IP phone and internet system that he's trying to get us hooked up with. We have a cost proposal from, I guess, Time Warner or Spectrum. And so that $72,000 there is actually going to decrease down to around $52,000 if we go Lance's route with internet and phone and also the internet service that we'd need to provide for our customers. But Lance and I are also working with AT&T right now. AT&T came to us and they're talking about trying to establish something. We're going to compare costs to see if we can get that cheaper with a what they call a private fiber line. It's just a dedicated fiber line just to us.
Yeah, there's kind of two options to bring service to you guys. You can either have a fiber optic cable where we can bring everything back here, and that doesn't exist right now.
No.
Okay. So the least expensive way for us to do that is to go to Time Warner because you're wanting to put Wi-Fi, good Wi-Fi in your parks and in your campsites. And so to do that, we can get Time Warner to do it much cheaper than we can go put in our own fiber line, and they just pipe that back here through our network.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking at that, but AT&T is beginning to get a little jealous of all the work we're giving Time Warner, so they've now come in a couple of different cases and said, look, we'll sit down and talk to you all about, we can provide the fiber line and et cetera, et cetera. So they're looking at those costs now. But the goal here is to get to do pretty much what we did over in Port Aransas with their telephone system. They now have a county telephone system. They are on our county telephone network, and that's what we want to do. Eventually, we want to do that to all the county facilities.
Yeah, that'd be good because, our phone systems are really bad. We've still got analog phone systems in the Port Aransas office.
Yeah.
So there's a cost there, but the bulk of this is a water, and so that's that section there. Maintenance and repairs, buildings and grounds is our next one. Now, this is something that the commissioner and myself and my board members have talked about, and actually we have. This is a one-time cost, and there's $40,000 in there to fix the paved area of the existing campground at Padre Bay, not the new, but the existing. That's a one-time expense. There's another one-time expense that I'm asking for, and this may be inappropriate here, but I'm asking for an additional $20,000 so I can go fix the ADA access and parking at Packard Channel Nature Park. I know that that was one of the findings when the DOJ did their inspection, but I know that right now with everything you've got, Judge, with polling places and other stuff, I'm not high on the list, and I thought, well, that place is sustaining so much foot traffic, I thought, well, it'd be good to go ahead and knock that out. And we've got some upgrades that we need to do to our pumps at the I.B. McGee current pump house over there, and we've got some AC replacements that are coming up in both parks. So that's buildings and grounds, and really that buildings and grounds line item there, that's the one that we hit the hardest. That's the one that we struggle with every year, just because out there nothing really lasts a long time, with the facilities and all. So we've got computer needs again. That's to support the new workstations that we're going to need for increased reservations and services for sales at each one of the parks. We're doubling them. Then we've got next is the capital outlay. We listed what we wanted, but we did not request an increase in what we had from last year. And so that's all there. We have some non-capital that is an increase, and that's for UP scanners, cash drawers, receipt printers, and that one backhoe implement that I've already hit on back in here, but we listed it as, the auditors like for us to list it as non-capital. And so there again, those items are required just to support the new operations with the doubling of the size of the parks. Then we have some personnel requests, and it's a doozy. And that is, the big one is, we're desperate for some janitorial services, and one of the things that we face is we have 15 different facilities that we have to clean and maintain on a daily basis, not spaces but facilities. And so In the perfect world, I would have 5 custodial positions that we'd be able to employ to do that. We can't really keep up right now, especially during the summertime. And as you know, if you go to public facilities or RV parks, wherever you're at, that's the worst thing that can hurt us is if we don't have clean showers and restrooms, people don't come back, and that's the first thing they notice, that and trash. And so it's a struggle right now to be able to do maintenance and still keep up with that. Then you have some reclassifications that I've asked for in there, and an additional senior clerk to help with the workload once we finish doubling the size of these parks. Let's see if I'm missing anything. And my board behind me, y'all jump in anytime you think that I'm struggling. And
there's more of them now, Scott, that have appeared since you've turned around. So you're
okay.
Now they're really watching close.
Okay. And so I think our request, without hearing what the judge had to say, I think it's reasonable. But I don't think I think it's something that we can turn around. I mean, we've got a really bright future once we get these things finally opened up, and our revenue earning potential is going to be great. Our peers are doing great. So we're doing really well there. We just hit a little bit of a bump in the road. So that's 180. And 181, what we were asking to do. Yeah. Yeah, we did. We went from a $2 admission fee to a $5 admission fee, and in a perfect world, running all year long without any biological related events, storms, or anything like that, based on the amount of admissions we'd have between both piers, we'll see an additional $303,000 of gross revenue from that rate increase. That does not include tackle sales, sundries, pole rental, or the percent commissions we get from our concessionaires. That's just admission fees. But that's best case scenario. We don't have any control over whether there's bacteria eating algae out there in the water or red tide, stuff like that drives people away. But so in a good year, that's what we can expect to see as a result of that increase. And we'll see some of that this year too, because we implemented that fee in February.
And Judge, one of the things that we have discussed is trying to rebuild that fund balance, because the reserves are not by anybody's standards appropriate, but they had to do what they had to do to make some repairs and do some things. And so we've talked about some different ideas. Janie actually made that suggestion when we met about coming up with a new policy on the fund balance resurrection of, if you will. So I think they're going to be doing some discussions on that too, and so some of this increased revenue might be heading towards rebuilding of the fund balance as well.
Definitely.
Come on.
One other comment also, the silver lining in all this, and these RV parks are incredibly successful. If anybody looks to see how it's
Jay, I'm sorry, do you mind coming up to the front, because we are trying to record this, and it makes it very difficult when you're sitting in the back. You probably have this same problem with the school district, though.
Okay, so one of the things is a silver lining in that because this is county park, we don't owe anything on the land. We own the land. So therefore, if you look at all these other RV parks around the country, around the coastal bend, they're tremendously successful. So as soon as we get online again, we'll start realizing the operational expenses will be able to become more self-sufficient. I think that, as Scott said, definitely a bump in the road. And as we have grown the park, definitely our footprint has grown. And now, as we turn around, we just need to get the operational expenses all in line, basically. So I really believe that this is just hopefully a one-time request, and that by this time next year, we're rolling along like we've been rolling.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Scott, could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Actually, a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
and I know you don't have the money in the bank yet, but if you are fortunate enough to receive this Restore grant,
We will.
how do they allow you to utilize that money? Can you use that money to offset some of these costs?
No, I can't use it to offset operating expenses. The money was specific to the scope of work that they funded and will fund,
Okay.
and that is restoration of the park facilities, expanding the park facilities, and whether it's RV pad sites.
My point, Scott, is if you're using that Restore grant money to do those kind of things, then it should free up some operational money that you otherwise would have had to have spent.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's what I mean by
Okay,
helping you
yeah.
offset this. Okay.
Definitely. For instance, one of the problems with this whole Padre Bali thing is I've got to run a new water line with a 4-inch water line, 4-inch tap. That wasn't thought through. And so, I didn't go to the commissioner and ask for any money from him. I didn't go anywhere else. I went straight to my reserves and my 181, and those are the kind of things that have been killing me. I'm going back to fix problems affiliated with that project and other facilities. And so without bothering you all with it, I just go to my reserves.
So you operate 2 RV parks, one at IB McGee and one at Padre Bali.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Okay, and you're expanding both of those?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so I just want to ask this general question,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to make anybody mad, but I just want to ask. Our Bob Hall Pier restaurant facility, we contract that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's been, by everything I've been told, has been extremely successful.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we not farming out those RV parks for somebody to run and manage and us collect a percentage of the profits?
Mm-hmm. Because you wouldn't have me.
I mean, there's a lot of other things out there to do besides run RV parks.
Oh yeah, no, but I guess if you wanted to, you could look at it that way. I mean, you could outsource that operation if you wanted to. It just depends on where you want to be with your profits. You cut about your overhead.
Yeah,
And-
I'm sorry. Commissioner, you finished? I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I'm fine, yeah.
No, and that was a good question. Commissioner Pusley has a good question there. But my next question is the same thing. I don't want to, we always talk about how much money we're bringing into this thing, and a lot of money is coming in, and I don't know, the money that comes in, where does that money go? General fund? Does it go back to your fund? I don't understand. If you're bringing so much money in, why are we having so much trouble paying? So maybe we're trying to grow too much at one time. We have 1 or 2 parks. Maybe we need to just stay there till we stabilize everything else. And why are we trying to expand when we're having all these problems?
Well, Commissioner, we're really not having a lot of problems. We got a couple of little areas here we need a little help. But
a big help.
So I guess it just comes down to this park board has been in existence since 1949 consecutively every year. And so I guess, outside of what my board would petition, because, I'm appointed by the board. That's who I actually work for. And so outside of that, I guess the Commissioners Court would have to figure out, what is your vision? Where do you see it in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? I don't know. I've never asked you all that.
Well, you may ask Steve this. Where does the money go to, Steve, on the revenues? How does that go?
Everything stays with the park fund, just like everything for the inland parks stays with the inland parks. But it's by fund, and so everything is collected there. It goes back to paying expenses there.
So all that money is collected there is earmarked for expenses there? So what much do we have?
We use every dollar that we create, we use.
What's the balance on that fund right now?
Well, I will tell you that this coming year, my projection is they're going to not have a zero fund balance in their general fund.
So we didn't make.
Not general fund, operating fund, and we do transfer money from the general fund as we do from the inland parks.
But we're not really making all that money then. A lot of money.
Well, I would agree with Scott that his revenue is going up on a regular basis. Maybe not as much as we'd like, but they would like. But
Look,
definitely,
as a comparison,
is increasing.
Inland Parks is 100% supported by the general fund, 100%. Coastal Parks is become more and more self-sustaining to where their revenues offset, what is it up to now, 70%?
Anywhere around 63,
64%,
64. It fluctuates between 63 and 67.
And it used to be 50%, or...
When I came, it was 43%.
Right, so since Scott took it over, the general fund was, and Steve, correct me if I'm terminologizing wrong, the coastal parks was operating at 43% revenue and 57% general fund. Now they're 63% revenue generated, 37% general fund, whereas inland parks is 100% general fund. So they have increased their revenues and they have increased their efficiencies, and they have, without making a request in 10, 12, 15 years for any additional monies to come from the general fund.
I think our thing out there, Commissioner, is that inland parks, coastal parks, is for our constituents, the people of Nueces County to go out there and enjoy. I think we ventured to some other things that are really are big things, and trying to say we're going to be able to do this and we're going to be able to do that, and we might make a lot of revenue, but evidently, according to Glenn, to Steve, we don't have any money, So evidently, we spend our money.
According to Steve, we don't have any money. I don't know what that means.
Well, the budget, as far as the money from the revenues that are used to pay for the expenses, I don't know how. I asked him, what are we at with that monies right now?
The revenues have gone up, is what his answer was.
Yeah.
The revenues have continued to go up for the coastal parks.
So have the expenses, and so have the everything else.
Well, Commissioner, there have been a long time since a lot of investments have been made in this department.
No, and I think what we're trying to dance around here is part of the reason is we've had a huge problem this year with the work being done out there that is not the county's fault, not the coastal park's fault. And I don't want to say whose fault it is, because we're on public record and we're still having those discussions, and I don't want to slander anyone, but I can tell you it's not the county's fault. And the judge and I have been working really hard to try to figure out how to fix that without litigation, and that may or may not happen. So what he's saying is, because of the anticipated revenues that we thought we would have, because this should have been finished in October or November, and it's now June, almost July, we've lost significant revenues out there that is causing, as he said, a small bump in the road. And quite frankly, even without a small bump in the road, the fact that they're making an appeal to the general fund for the first time in 15 years, 10, 12, whatever years it is significant, because that certainly isn't something that most departments in this county have done, and I'm not sure if any have not made a request to the general fund in 10 or 12 years. So I don't know, are there any other departments that haven't made a request to the general fund in 10 or 12 years, Steve, that you can think of? Is there any other department in the county that hasn't made a request for an increase in general fund in 10 or 12 years? I don't know of any. So anyways, I mean, if you...
That's probably all right.
Okay.
No, well, is there? I mean,
Let's wrap it up.
Okay, all right, so in 181,
Yeah, Inland Parks hasn't had any requests for, their increases have been coming the same as yours through any salaries. The only thing we're increasing in Inland Parks is salaries as we go along, but otherwise the Inland Parks continue to operate with what they've, now, they're not making their own revenue, but again, the level of additional funding from the court has been just for salaries for both parks.
We make a little revenue,
I agree,
Well, no, and there's no way you can in some of what you do. I mean, some of the stuff that I don't understand why is in inland parks, like Meals on Wheels and stuff like that. I'm not criticizing inland parks. I'm just saying I think there's
I agree with that.
a difference in this, that their revenues have continued to increase significantly, and their hope is, and if the projections on these parks would have happened because we would have gotten them done on time, what you would have seen is that 63%, there's projections that'll show it'll jump up to where the revenue that we're going to generate off the expansions will more than pay for the debt service on the bonds and help increase the net revenue, or the net amount that, or the percentage increase will continue to go up from 63 to whatever it is. And we don't want to throw that number out there because we haven't seen it, but we think that will continue to go out there. I mean, well, you can if you've done it. I mean,
okay. Well, let me just give you real quick, because the judge wants me to get this wrapped up, and I want to too. With Padre Bay doubling the size of that, our new rate structure out there, and IB McGee, once it's complete, and these are hard numbers based on sales consistently for 5 years now, your revenue, once both those phase ones are opened up, your revenue will range from $706,181 to $755,700 once both those phases are opened up. So that's what we're projecting once we get opened up. 182 real quickly, all 182 is kind of like our park improvement account. Every sale that we make for an RV site, a tent site, overnight stay, there's a percentage of that goes into 182. Everything in 182 is... 181. I'm sorry. Thank you, Steve. 181. And so 181, that's our money. We put it in there through the sale of goods and services. It didn't come from the general fund. We had asked to move some of our money into designated line items instead of it just being there as a reserve appropriations, just in case we need it. We've always had those line items funded exactly like that, except for last year. They were zeroed out because we don't use them. But it's nice to have it without having to do a budget transfer and come to court if we ever need it. We've guarded that very carefully. Okay, 182. 182, we were requesting, and based on conversation that I've had with the Commissioner Steve and my park board, we were originally requesting in the perfect world. There again, you know what's beauty about 182? Commissioner Gonzalez, hear this. 182 is 100% self-funding. It doesn't cost the taxpayer in Nueces County a darn dime, and it makes tons of money running that pier out there. I mean, and then that money is then since transferred over into to support 180, our operating budget. So we were going to request some of what we make in there.
How much money do you have right now in your reserve?
In 180.
You're saying you have money, so...
No, that's not what he's saying. No. Commissioner, listen to what he's saying. He's saying the money from the pier fund that they generate 100% of then goes to offset operating, which helps the general fund. But don't misrepresent what he's saying.
So I'm proud of that because when we originally started that venture, we took $63,000 out of our 181 account, made the investment to start that, and every year it makes enough revenue, gross revenue, to offset the operating expenses for the next year and then transfer over to help offset operating expenses in 180. And so we were originally asking to take some of those temps that we use out there and turn them into 2 full-time positions. Again, general fund not funding that, the peer fund funding that, but we've since decided, based on some discussions and cost of benefits thereof, and that we'll just stay working with temps, especially with the 3-month flexibility I got with their hours nowadays. So that's it. Questions?
Questions?
Good job.
Nice job, Scott.
Yes, sir. Mr. White.
Come up, Mr. White. Glad to see you this morning. We're glad to have all of you here. Seriously, it's good to see your support. It's good for you to take time out of your day to come in and support the coastal parks, and I know this board does a lot of work, and we appreciate your being here.
Morning. This is 2 points. One, with one hat I have is a business association on the island. I want to let you know I'm also vice president of one of the largest condominium boards on the island. Our occupancy rates are skyrocketing, and when our winter Texans started to go home this spring, we had a large number of them, over 80% of them in our 200-unit development. Over 80% of them made their reservations for next year. And at the same time, those folks from Iowa, Nebraska, Michigan, Illinois, wherever they're from, are asking about their friends. When is the RV park going to be open? Number 2 is travel tourism. Our Convention and Visitors Bureau is working very hard, and we know hard statistics are that our market from Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, the eastern side of Houston, etc., grows tremendously every year, and we know that of all of these people, number-wise, come to Corpus Christi, they usually spend a day, day and a half at the Lexington, the aquarium, etc. And then 87% of them come to the beach from there. We have over 400 new condominium units are coming online on Padre Island alone this year, plus the RV spots. It's an exploding market, and people have disposable money, and you take a look at the numbers that our restaurant out at Bob Hall is doing. That restaurant numbers have grown virtually every single month since we put that thing into business. And it's just what's going on, and it's going to get bigger, and it'll get bigger faster than any of us can really think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Would any of the rest of the board members care to make a comment? This is your time.
Yeah.
Well, if
Yeah. Okay.
Well, if they're done, I wanted to say too, we also like Scott.
Yeah.
I think Scott does a spectacular job, and with Commissioner Chesney and the park board and Scott, it's just amazing what y'all have been able to accomplish. I'm very jealous. So, but what you bring to this county and the constituents of this county and the people who, as Mr. White said, the people who visit our community, they all, they go away, but they all come back.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to come back. So that says a lot. So congratulations.
Thank you. And whatever y'all's decision is, I want to let you know, as far as what anybody else does, doesn't do, gets, doesn't get, that doesn't concern me. I don't care. So I'm just worried about coastal parks. That's all. I'm my own business there. And so, but if you look at, and it was interesting. I had Cameron County came up and visited me the other day, and Galveston County came and visited me. Those two counties come to us and look to us for what we're doing, and I'm kind of jealous of Cameron County right now because they're getting out ahead of me, and I wanted to be out ahead of them. I mean, they're making some serious investments in their coastal parks, and they're growing by leaps and bounds down there. They realize the economic value of what they have along those beaches. So let's not let them get ahead of us.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. All right, that concludes the morning's budget scheduled briefings. Tomorrow we will do IT and juvenile, and that's it, right? That's all the ones we've heard from. Let me thank all of you who were here today, Coastal Parks. We appreciate your support. Scott did a great job. I think that wraps up today on the budget workshops. We have some good proposals. We'll have 2 more tomorrow. Then the auditor and Steve and I'll go to work, and we'll see what we got and or don't have, as the case may be. But commissioners, I want to thank you for your questions. You've asked some good questions. I want to thank you for your attendance, and we'll see you in the morning at 8:30. 8:30.